social media basically created the isolation and loneliness problem. And now they're deciding they want to be the solution by giving you fake friends. Don't love that.
Hey everyone, welcome to Where Brands Get Their Edge, where we break down the biggest marketing tips and secrets that help you scale your business. What is up, Amanda?
I mean, same old, hot in Florida. How are you guys in the DC area?
I never get tired of hearing about how nice it is in Florida, but it's actually great here right
No,
now.
that's what I'm saying. It's not as nice. We're doing the slow march into the hellish weather right now.
Yeah, but have I told you my theory on how global warming is going to work out for the DC area?
Yes. I kind of agree.
It's happening. We're going to be Southern California in 30 years, and the coast is going to come even a little closer to my house, hopefully. We're going to have it all.
I'll have to move back because I'll be underwater.
I mean, whatever it takes. Or you'll be beachfront after it.
Well, first I'll be beachfront. And so that'll be great for like 5 seconds before we, all go on.
That's going to be a slow rise. The glaciers will
that's true,
All right. So for today, we're talking about Meta's new AI app, which I have on my phone and use for my Meta glasses, but had no idea this feature had fucking dropped last week until you sent it to me.
Yep.
For anyone who doesn't know, Meta now has essentially like a Pinterest type social field. So anything you use their AI to make, you can just share on the platform, but it's like basically a bunch of strangers and trash and anyone who fucking uploads anything. And as always with everything Meta, even though I make money using it, I'm hyper concerned about privacy stuff, right? Like I don't want Zuck having even more access to all my stuff. It's like a big part of the reason I'll probably ChatGPT until Meta's AI somehow like completely crushes it. But what's your feedback on this so far?
Well, first I want to give everybody an example of how this works. I'm not sure that's clear. So like in the Meta AI app, you can tell it to create a picture, for example, and you'll say, I want a picture of a gorilla in a kitchen eating ramen. And it'll come up with something completely bizarre. And then you can just decide, like, I want other people to see this. So you can choose to share it in the chat feed. And so if you choose, and you're not going to do this by accident. They ask you specifically, you're going to share this. Do you want to share this? And you press a button and then it shows up in a feed of just complete strangers, like you said. So it's like anybody that's on there that's using the feed can see your weird pictures. And so I don't really understand the purpose of this. I certainly don't think we need another chat option. I'm not really keen on talking to strangers on chat. I definitely wouldn't want my kids doing that. But this just came out April 29th, and I just thought it would be interesting to hear what people thought about it.
So I think the like purpose is like inspo, right? And I've seen that you can link to your Instagram if you post to it, so that way you have some like cross reference. And data is the king for AI, right? Like the models really train themselves and at a certain point self-educate and improve. And for the same reason, Tesla's probably always going to be the king of self-driving, right? Because all their cars have cameras and are doing data 24/7. Like if you have a Tesla, all your data is going to Tesla. It's part of your agreement. And they're tracking the roads. They're seeing where you turn left. They see where you turn right. And Meta's data is just too much. I mean, they have everything on everyone all the time if you're using their platforms. And that is the thing I think that kind of freaks me out the most about it. And I'd like something to be just for me,
Zuckerberg is not shy about wanting your data either. And what's weird is there was another article that came out, I'm not sure if it was today or yesterday, in the Wall Street Journal. And it explains Zuckerberg's vision that he said, most of your friends will be AI in the future. And the reasoning is that people are lonelier, or they have maybe 3 good friends, but the general desire is to have at least 15 friends, and your AI is really going to know you and they're going to be your best friends. Like that is crazy to me. I don't like this as a solution. First of all, I don't like that social media basically created the isolation and loneliness problem. And now they're deciding they want to be the solution by giving you fake friends. Don't love that.
Also, just not into the like loserification of the world, right? Like, we're, like you said, we made the problem, we're encouraging the problem, right? All the problems come from people being alone, isolated, not having people. But young people, especially, are going out less, seeing people less. I don't see it dramatically in my community yet. But I mean, obviously, we've got this incel everything problem. And it's all because people are just not getting out and meeting other people. And other people are not as bad as you think once you get to know them.
And I don't think being more in front of a computer with like, chatbot friends is the answer to this issue at all. I embrace AI. I think AI is extremely useful for a lot of things. And I think it can help you do a lot of things faster and better and more efficiently. But I don't think it should replace your human friends.
Well, yeah, it's the exact opposite of what it should be doing, right? I want AI so I can fucking work less, be more efficient, so I can hang out with the people I care about and love more. I saw a meme that said the future I saw with robots and AI was them taking out the trash, mowing the lawns, and doing manual work so humans could create art and poetry, not AI making art and poetry so humans do all the manual labor. And
Yeah.
I'm really hoping there's going to be some big backlash to this, but it's all going to be in like two, maybe four companies' hands.
Yeah. And
And they're going to control everything.
I'm pretty sure there's gonna, now that we have this one chat feed, there's gonna be, I think actually ChatGPT is also working on a chat feed. I read that as well. So great.
Well, and there are tons of AI influencers now, right? It started with just AI UCG, UGC, where you just make a fake avatar to put content out for you. But now, but that was like originally to be for a brand. And now people are just doing AI influencers. There are AI girls with OnlyFans who are openly AI, right? Like, it's not a secret. It's like, hey, I'm a fake person, but I'll do whatever you want. And everyone's like, sign me up. And I don't know, it's crazy. I'm not into it.
All right. Yeah.
We're becoming
I'd be
old. Does this
interested to
mean we're
hear what
becoming old?
what?
Are we becoming old? Does this mean we're becoming old?
Potentially.
Is this like when our parents were like, don't play video games?
I don't know. For one thing is true. Things are moving much faster now. As the years go on, they move exponentially faster. I I don't know. We're getting out of date faster, I guess. We're getting older faster, maybe. I don't know. But things did not move this quickly
I mean,
when we
things
were.
are moving super fast. You
Yeah.
and I are like fucking pretty with it. But maybe next time we'll talk about quantum computing and how it's like literally distorting reality.
Okay.
That'll be a whole different. That's going to be the next big society changer and how that manifests itself. And basically, everything's either going to be amazing or Armageddon in the next 20 years.
Do you want me to predict which one?
Sure. What's your vote?
I mean, I vote for amazing.
No, not what is the vote that you think is going to happen?
I mean, I don't think this is going in a good direction.
I'm really leaning into take an amount of money, go to like Portugal, Mexico, Costa Rica, and just stay out.
Yeah, that's
Stay out
that's
of the
definitely a
bullshit.
backup plan.
But I'm getting more and more into it.
Yeah.
I think the way things are going, the amount of money is going to be less and less.
All
All
right.
right, everyone. We want to invite our good friend Nima Semnani, former hilarious guest and Sandler trainer, owns his own company, been a good friend, mentor, helper to me in our sales process and how we do things. Welcome, Nima.
Hi, thanks for having me.
How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. I was doing well, and then you guys really, really made me very worried about the future. But
Oh, come on.
yeah,
You were worried about the future anyway. Don't blame this on us.
yeah,
Hold on, this is actually a question for both of you because I feel like if I didn't have kids, I wouldn't care. So, Nima, do you care?
I care less. I think
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say I would care less.
I think there's
And I'm like, I don't want to burden them with it, but I feel like I got to set them up to like be interested in making a change, right? Ryan Holiday just did a piece on like the how America's lost the virtue of responsibility, right? And we are responsible for things that are happening. And it's been like, so for all these years, it's like, don't talk about sex, politics, and religion. And no one knows how politics works. No one knows how to fuck anymore. And no one knows anything about. Have you seen this? The kids like, they're just not
No,
doing
no,
it
I have
anymore.
seen they don't drink,
Okay.
they don't have sex. I know that.
Like, what are we even doing here?
And their friends are all on the computer. Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, just no one knows anything anymore. But like someone's gonna have to step up. And it's not gonna be us. Um, so everyone, as everyone knows, we are a, brand first marketing agency. You are Johnny Sales, and there's a lot of intersection where sales and marketing align, need to work together, conflict. And depending on the size of your company, it can become a bigger and bigger thing, right? When you're a small enough company and you're doing a lot of this, either yourselves or just like an agency and you're doing sales and there aren't as many layers, I think it's really easy to kind of identify, figure stuff out on a lighter level. But the more you grow, the bigger your sales team is, the bigger your marketing team is. I've seen a lot of situations where they are not aligned or beef or really just like kind of can't figure stuff out. And so we want to talk about their relationship, that intersection, how everything kind of works together, and how to get everything aligned and running smoothly.
So, I have ideas about what the best ways that a marketing department can support a sales department or a sales team.
I'm sorry, can I do one thing else for everyone who's listening?
Yes.
I'm Nemo's, again, Johnny Sales, right? I am like
I don't
fucking.
know if I call him Johnny. I mean, he's like amazing at his job. And that sounds like he's like whatever, some lay salesperson that just like follows instructions. He's like,
So I don't even know if the Johnny thing is a real expression, but when I use it, I mean like,
okay.
that's like you own
Just
that shit.
making sure you
Yeah,
have
but
the
no.
correct stature.
Actually, I just take umbrage with the Johnny part. I'm a brown boy. Can it be like a Javon Sales? Maybe? I don't know, like
I'll give
something.
you I'll give you one.
Okay. All right, anyway, continue.
But I'm obviously on the brand side. I'm like super aesthetic, and Amanda actually is really big in both, right? So she's really big on the sales enablement side, really big on the CMO side. So we kind of have in a world where all three of us actually did work together, probably Nima and I would beef, and Amanda would solve the problem. And so we did put together a really good intersection of skill sets for this, even though it's really just adding me.
So, I mean, one thing that I'll start with just my experience as a salesperson, things that really bothered me and I felt like were not as supportive when for the marketing team, okay, when they didn't put out good marketing materials, like for like leave behinds or anything like that. And they were just bland or non-existent, not helpful, weren't persuasive, didn't help you sell. Those kinds of things irked me. Even more so if marketing could not put together a cohesive website that explained the benefits. We were always having to pull that stuff out ourselves and create our own pitch without the help of the messaging from the marketing department. And to me, that was crazy just not to have that support. They were always very surface level. They had ideas about what would sell, but never spoke to the sales team. So actually talking to sales and hearing what objections were and trying to solve those in the messaging would have been extremely helpful. And I felt like I never got that when I was trying to sell. So those are my biggest beefs with the marketing as a salesperson. Nemo, what about you? Like, what do you see?
I would agree with those. I think that if I could take the entirety of the question and almost like kind of go a different direction,
Sure.
because I think there's two things that are pretty much evergreen. They're universal. They're not really going to be disrupted by AI because they're more human motivation questions. So historically, and I'll just bottom line it, anyone who's been in sales or marketing knows what I'm saying is true. Historically speaking, salespeople got paid more money than marketing people. If you're at a company of a certain size, the way it typically works. So, and I don't necessarily mean like a small organization like a startup, but you get to a certain size, and then there ends up being a little bit of a compensation disparity. I'm not saying it's fair or unfair, but just saying there is one. That the outbound sales team, because of their structure, their quota, their commission bonus structure, tends to be at the end of the day, if they're performing, compensated more than the marketing department. I think that by itself creates a little bit of a potential, let's just call it beef between the two departments. And the other thing that I think is related more to the human aspect of it is very rarely do these two teams do a role reversal. So I'll start with the latter aspect because this kind of goes to your point, Amanda. Is some of the best companies that we work with, and they have to be of a little bit of a certain size, but not like a massive size. It could be like a 5, 10, 15 person organization. Is they actually make a point during their onboarding and consistently throughout the year to actually do role reversals. Have the marketing people kind of attempt to, in a safe space, actually do a prequal, do a discovery, kind of see how the other half lives. And then the sales side, the BD team, SDRs, BDRs, what they were called, will actually go and try to spend an hour in marketing's shoes. And just that by itself opens up this empathy. It's like, oh man, I had no idea how hard your job really was. And so I know I took the question in a different direction, but I do think that as everything's being disrupted by AI and technology, there's certain aspects that are driving us as human beings that are sometimes at odds with each other. And I'm not here to say one is right or one is wrong, but some of the best organizations that we know, they're finding ways to actually incentivize the marketing side similarly to how they're incentivizing the sales side so that there's more skin in the game. Because historically, the way it works is like, well, you're marketing, your job is to have a marketing qualified lead, something that hits some sort of criteria, mostly quantitative, a little qualitative, and then, okay, sales team, here you go, get it done. But then once it gets done, the sales team might get compensated off of the incentives of it, but the marketing doesn't really get much other than maybe their annual bonus or whatever. And so I think there are two aspects I'm seeing happening quite a bit more now that just leads to healthier dynamic is one, taking a look at how both sides are incentivized and make that incentivization actually align. So as the sales team sells more, the marketing side that helped provide that opportunity gets compensated on the back end for deals that actually progress to the next stage. And the other side is more of a training aspect, is just taking some time to have someone be like, hey, oh, you think our job is easy? Why don't you give it a shot? But not in like a jerky way. Actually structuring role reversal so that, and I'm actually saying it's far more that the sales team doesn't understand how hard marketing is than it is for the marketing side to not understand how hard sales is. Because obviously, if someone just thinks for a moment, being in sales does sometimes require someone putting themselves out there for rejection on a daily basis. So I think, but the empathy for what goes into marketing, I think, is lacking on the sales side. Like, oh yeah, you just click a few buttons and and the phone starts ringing, and marketing's like, that's not exactly how it works.
I'm going to hit a little bit on both your things. On Amanda's side, all that stuff that you weren't getting, right? The stuff on the website, the stuff on the marketing collateral, etc. That's all strategy stuff that should be done maybe by the marketing team, but probably before they're even hired, right? And I say all the time, like one of the biggest, like you get the best sales pitch from an entrepreneur. You should work with me because X, Y, Z. We're good at this. We're good at that. It's never on the website. It's never in the collateral, right? Because it's not documented somewhere as sort of an existing strategy for everyone to refer back to keep them all on the same page. To your thing, Nima, the role reversal thing is really interesting. I'm like immediately thinking about
Yeah, I like how you provided solutions. So I like the way you took it, because then instead of just like talking more about what doesn't work between the teams, you were finding a solution and offering a solution for that, and I like that.
Well, I was immediately thinking about how we could do that internally.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, like
I mean,
let a PM be a designer, let a designer try to PM a client,
yeah.
you know, and kind of see how that goes.
What you'll find if you try it out, you'll actually find genius from the people who don't actually do it as their day job. And psychologically, because even myself, I do this for a living, but I also have my own echo chamber. I have my own talk tracks, and it's hard to break out of them. If someone was to literally step in, and as long as they had creativity and ambition and drive and, you know, obviously intellectual humility, they would probably come up with a question that I never thought to ask, and it's a brilliant question. So the very same people are probably going to actually help the sales team. Like, oh my God, that's a genius question. And they're asking because they genuinely don't know.
Well, and also if they're not getting what they need from that person, once they're in that role, that they'll see what the gap is and see why, right?
Exactly.
Um, and to, you know, it's funny that maybe not funny, but it's interesting what you were saying about essentially sharing commission. I'm like imagining like a bartender and a waiter, right? Like if the bartender doesn't make the drinks fast enough, the waiter um, isn't able to provide as good a service. And because a lot of agencies are doing that now too. They take a percentage of any increased revenue, right, for the same thing to kind of align everyone's interests. And MQLs, SQLs, lead, right? All that stuff's important to track to like keep an eye on how you're going. But at the end of the day, revenue is the only thing that matters, right? If revenue is going up and all the other shit is like harder to track, that's why a lot of businesses like they just kind of hit it and they don't know why, right? Like as long as you have enough money coming in, you can solve any business problem if you're doing profitable work. Big it.
I'd agree with that. Yeah. Revenue and obviously margin.
Yeah. I say as long as you're doing profitable work. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently, and I got to tell you, I'm going to blame Zuck and the other tech bros for this as well. Is sometime 20 years ago, profitability just thrown out the window. It's like somehow we just forgot that businesses are hopefully supposed to be profitable. It's like, oh yeah, whatever. We're losing $800 million a year, but look at our revenue. So as long as revenue's growing and there's margin profitability, I'm aligned with you.
Yeah. What did the WeWork guy? What's his name? Adam
Newman.
Newman. Yeah. What he cashed out with $3 billion. WeWork never made a penny. It's worth like a fraction of what it was. SoftBanks got caught holding the bag, and he just raised.
Or you're sitting in a WeWork.
I love WeWork. I love WeWork. I'm just, and he just raised $300 million to start a WeWork competitor.
What a world.
What a world.
I mean,
But so we were talking about AI earlier. What are you seeing on the sales front as far as are sales teams actually adopting AI or are they resistant? And if they are, what is one of the best ways you've seen them do that?
Okay, so I promise I didn't set out to have a theme of like mindset or incentives or empathy or motivation, but honestly, I just think that's it's all we can really control right now.
this is NEMA 2.0.
Yeah.
What happened to you?
I told you, I fell in love and became happy. Listeners, don't do that. And I don't mean they'll get married. Just don't be happy. No, I'm kidding. All right. Hey.
The marriage will. The happiness will fade.
Okay. So the reason why I'm bringing up the idea to answer your question is I actually think that to some extent sales teams are adopting AI way more readily and way faster without as much resistance as I would have anticipated. However, it requires one thing, in which case, if this one thing is present, then people adopt it. If this one thing is absent, they reject it. And that is like, do they feel agency in using it? Do they feel like they have freedom in using it? And those teams that feel like they have freedom in using it, what I mean by that is it's offered as a solution that they can put their fingerprints on, then people are adopting it. When it's offered as a requirement, here's a way to do it, here's your talk tracks, here's how we're going to use it, then people are more resistant to it. But I would say people are adopting it. But here's actually why people are adopting it so readily. Because this is one of those times in which the salespeople, and like, demographically, I think in organizations, salespeople oftentimes do make up the youngest demographic, at least, especially for people who have like an SDR account executive model, that they tend to be the ones teaching the leadership team about the technology, not the one learning from. And so what's happening now is because the front line is, let's face it, just more tech forward in general. They grew up with a lot of technology. It's not as threatening to them. Plus, they have the added benefit of being empowered by actually being the ones to teach it to the executive dinosaur team, then they feel agency. They feel like they have control over it. But the moment it becomes, I think, more of like a top-down mandate, I think we'll see more resistance to it.
And so how are you seeing them implement AI?
Well, I can tell you the really good ways I'm seeing people implement it. So like, here's an example, and actually this might be a twofer, because this may actually go back to the question as to how sales and marketing teams can align even better. Here's a simple one. If I was in a marketing department and I was just, getting ready to either launch a new product offering or anything, the first question I would ask ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you're using is simple. I would just ask it. I would just say, here's what the company does. And then I would say, what sorts of problems or opportunities would have to be present in order for our product or solution to be relevant? And I'll repeat that question because it's simple. The question is just, what types of problems or opportunities would a prospect have to have in order for what we do to be relevant? And the reason why it's kind of a twofer is whatever the AI spits out, it's not going to be perfect. I heard something a long time ago, like 2 years ago, that I still think about, is you got to treat AI like an intern. It's a hardworking intern, but you got to treat it like an intern. So it's not going to be perfect. The first iteration is never going to be perfect. But then whatever it spits out is going to be scenarios. It's going to be little vignettes. Like, here's the situation. So like example in branding and marketing, without even using it, my guess is if I was to put into ChatGPT or Claude, run a digital marketing company, specialize in branding, blah, blah, all that other stuff, I would ask the question, and what would probably be spit out was something along the lines of like, here's a scenario. A company, great product, great solutions, feeling like they're getting a little bit outdated, a little antiquated. Their website doesn't give off the same 21st century vibe. It worked for them 10 years ago, it doesn't work for them now. That would actually be an inflection point that a digital marketing company would probably be able to come in and help with, or a branding agency. So I think that the ways in which I'm seeing people use it very effectively, that's why it's like a bonus thing. So if a marketing person was to go and just ask that question to ChatGPT, then it spits out these kind of vignettes, then they can actually cater the marketing efforts not to the product offering itself, like we do this widget or we build websites or we put together great content. It's more like, no, the problem it's solving is X. And then the sales team can use that same content in the third-party stories they tell their prospects. So there's a long-winded answer for you.
Well, you touched on something very important. You should always, every company selling anything should frame it in the way of how it's going to help the company that they're trying to sell to. Instead of provide this, this, and this, you should buy from me. You should illustrate how you can solve a problem they are experiencing. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and AI might be a really big intersection between the two, because that did feel like more of a marketing one, but we're working on something right now. So we are trying to automate our follow-up process, right? And we're putting something together where, it'll like check their LinkedIn, pull like an interesting fact from one of their posts, and like kind of write the whole thing so everything's hyper personalized. And I think using AI to automate and hyper personalize is something that I imagine marketing would do for sales, but is something that will really tighten up response times, sales cycles, and get all that moving a lot more quickly. But you got to get the salesperson to read the emails. Otherwise, they're going to get on the call and have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. Now, I will tell you, that is one of the areas you just touched on, one of the areas that there is more resistance to.
Really?
Oh, yeah, for sure. By the way, great idea to an extent, but keep in mind, if it's a company of, if the company is small and mighty and you can just open the door and just, yell out to your colleague, some of these issues don't become as big. But I do think that most salespeople, by their nature, are a little bit of a control freak, a little bit. And that's actually not a bad attribute to have. That part, it makes sense, and I think people can maybe see the long-term value in it, but almost every salesperson is going to say the following: I have my own process. Or what they'll end up doing, especially if it's automated through like a HubSpot, there's always these little triggers you can toggle on or off and remove someone from the follow-up process. So what happens is the powers that be, whether it's marketing or the sales enablement team, goes and builds out all these processes only to have the salesperson just untoggle it, like remove from client's workflow. And that's because like they just don't trust it yet. And they're like, no, I have my own way to do it. And sometimes they have actual reasons not to.
But like you said, that's fine too. It's an optional.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. For us, I mean, it works. We are a smaller company. If we all agree that this is a good way to go, it's easy to do it, But that sounds very similar to a backlash about adopting CRMs or new CRMs, where everybody's like, I have my own process. I keep everything in a spreadsheet. I mean, it's ridiculous. It is, though, very hard to get salespeople to, I guess, cooperate when it comes to tracking technology and things like that.
I mean, yeah,
Well, they want to protect their contacts too. If say they are leaving a company, I mean, I'm getting off track with this, but say they're like, want to be able to take their contacts with them. They don't want everybody else knowing who they are.
I mean, I'll admit I'm a total hypocrite.
You're talking to me.
I mean, I'll admit I'm a total hypocrite. I mean, so I cut my sales teeth, so to speak, in medical device sales. And this was like back in the days where, I mean, Salesforce was still fairly new. We remember having like Siebel or Max, some really antiquated CRM system. And I was absolutely at the front line of like, this is Big Brother watching what I'm doing. This, like, why do I have to log my call notes? I was the, and now, of course, here I am promoting it. No, it's power. So I have to acknowledge my own hypocrisy. I never liked it. But I will tell you, it took me realizing that there was something in it for me before I finally got dragged kicking and screaming into doing something as simple as, hey, maybe mark a deal closed lost with a reason. And then that became selfishly, because then 6 months I was like, wait, why did they not move forward again? I actually had to learn. Some people, some kids, some human beings can be told, don't touch the stove, it's hot. Many of us need to touch the stove. Like, I need proof, you know?
I mean, perspective is everything, right? You guys are going to find this very hard to believe, but I was not a great employee at my first couple of jobs out of college.
I'm shocked.
But I'm still very cool with my old boss and her old boss. And so we have dinner like once a year ish. And the first dinner we had after I started running Falcon, I was bitching about employees being late and this and that and da da da. And they both like heaving, dying, laughing. And I'm like, what? And my first, I think 2 years there, I was hourly, right before I got a full time gig. And she goes, Borzi, you never got a full paycheck. Never once did you work 80 hours in a fucking pay period. So yeah, perspective changes a lot of things. But I think that also comes back to alignment and communication and explaining instead of telling, right? Like explaining why it's important, that it's in their best interest. And I think this is a bit of a generational thing. And the boomers definitely didn't feel like they needed to do this. And the Gen X were like super independent. And especially with younger employees now, the why is so important. And that was something that people had a real strong reaction to at a certain point. But I think it's better. I think you should know why you're doing something. And I think it's easy to get people aligned if you kind of put in the time. And the role reversal trick would work right there too.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think. I mean, there's a quote. I don't know who said it. It's a little bit cliche, but I think it's applicable. Leadership is getting people to do what you want them to do for their reasons. So I think the only thing what you just said that I would refine slightly is it's not. To me, it's less about explaining and more about asking. So even if, and let's play it out. Even if a corporation, a company has mandated this is the direction we're going, they can still position it as a question. So going to the sales team, like, hey, here's the initiative we're going to put forth. There's probably stuff that we are unaware of that you have insight on. So here's what my request. What are some of the things we're not considering? Like asking the team, what are some things we're not considering? What are some of the negatives you can see based off of this proposed solution or initiative? What are some of the upside that you might see? And so you could still be prepared to guide the conversation and to maybe explain where necessary. But it's like taking the same thing, but instead of explaining, here's all the great reasons, just to ask the team. And I think it's a subtle tweak, but I think it ultimately leads more to getting people, I hope, who would otherwise be resistant to taking a chance on something because there's something in it for them. And so it's a little bit more of asking versus front and explaining, and then ask, get the response. If it's close enough, then refine, like the old yes and move that I'm probably tired of at this point in time. Separate conversation, but yeah.
It's almost like a trial close, like getting them to agree to little things along the way.
I was going to say, Nima is nicer than me now. Any other red flags or tools around alignment? Right? Like I loved the role reversal thing. And like otherwise, how often are they meeting? How often are they talking? How are they beefing over MQLs versus NQLs? Any tips in that direction from either one of you, actually?
Amanda?
Oh, well, I mean, I think the biggest thing, it really is the communication. There, most of the time, there's no communication between the two teams or very little. And there's some weird sort of like nationalistic identity behavior on the teams. Like, I'm a salesperson, those marketing people are, entitled and then vice versa. That's always what I saw. And it was so interesting. You were talking about like sales getting paid more money, which is, true and really usually across the board. But sales teams and sales individuals have their money they can get it revoked. And marketing always has guaranteed money. So they're a salaried employee. They get a certain amount of money no matter how they perform. They were not, like when you went to incentives, I think that was the biggest, most important thing to talk about, because everybody needs to be incentivized to behave in the ways that are going to do the things that are best for the company. And that is usually not the case. I think making sure that everybody's incentivized to do what's best for the company, and to make sure that everybody is communicating on a regular basis, whatever a regular basis is, like maybe once every 2 weeks, having some sort of meeting with with qualifying questions between the two departments. I think that would really help. Those are, I think, the two solutions and I love your role reversal idea. I had never thought of that.
So as far as kind of additional alignment tools, here's a couple. One is, and this doesn't get done nearly enough, when there is a really good marketing qualified lead, or what do you want to call it, for someone on the sales team to just go back and say, this is the one. Replicate this. And I know, and unless it's like a unicorn situation, I think a lot of times it's, do you remember, at this, I can't remember what politician did this nonsense when we were kids, but remember back when they were debating violence in video games and how it was ruining us? And then one of the politicians was asked to define the word obscene. And they finally said, well, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. And so replace obscene with like a good MQL. A lot of times people have a hard time describing it, but when they see it, they can recognize it. And because human beings are much easier with pattern recognition than we are recall memory, just simple tool for sales teams out there. When you get an amazing lead, like, oh my God, this is like lead came down from heaven, communicate what made it great. There's going to be typically a few actual replicable attributes to it. It might be time bound. It might be the demographics of it. It might be a specific sector that we work well in. So I think the communication after the fact of like a positive postmortem, not like, I know everyone thinks postmortem is always negative. Like, no, this went well. How do we replicate what got us here in the first place? And obviously with a little bit of gratitude for the marketing team to put that in place. And then one other thing actually is more of a lesson in general to be applied to across the board any organization. And it does come from Adam Grant and Hidden Potential, but I think there's a lot of good there, is that a lot of people ask for feedback, and feedback is probably one of the worst things you can ask for if you want to get better. Because when you ask for feedback, what you typically get are cheerleaders or critics. And cheerleaders celebrate your best self, critics tear down your worst self. What one really wants to ask for is advice for next time. So whether it's on the marketing side or the sales side or leadership side, it's best to just ask for like, hey, what is some advice that you would give us for next time? And then I think people are more likely to say, oh, well, if you're asking for advice, here's what I would suggest. Less on this, more on that. So just that's more of like a general bit of feedback that changed my life recently, is that how many times do we ask for feedback? People are like, yeah, it's great. But if you just say, okay, appreciate that is great. What is one thing we can do better or differently next time? People will finally give you a real answer.
I might toss that into our client survey follow-up right now.
Yeah, I really like how that like prompts an actual response that is useful, instead of, like you said, the words are important, and if it's too general, it doesn't help people think of the things that you could do to improve the process. So that's awesome. I have one last question, which is, if someone only takes one piece of sales advice from you, what piece of advice should that be?
That's easy. Be a human being. I think that I've gone through all the sales methodologies, Miller Hyman, Challenger, Spin, and then Sandler is a methodology that I align with, but they all have great value. Like every methodology out there has great value. But I will tell you, if you follow any methodology, no matter what it is, including Sandler, literally, you're going to fail because it removes the human element to it. So really, the best sales advice I can give is that you kind of practice mindfully to execute mindlessly. And really, what executing mindlessly means is, in sports parlance, whatever your sport is, I guarantee you that athlete's not thinking about their swing or their jump shots or how to catch a pass when the pressure's on. They're trusting their practice so that their gut actually operates in their best instinct. And so when I say be a human being, I mean like take all the content, absorb it, and then decide in the moment what to deploy. Because a lot of times what we're attempting to do in sales is to just determine, does the person's story make sense? There are sometimes people, and it drives me crazy, actually, as a sales trainer, where they take the good aspect of a principle and then they weaponize it. Like, so example, someone does a good technique, like, hey, listen, at this point in time, we're at a point in the process where typically make a decision or two. And that decision is either we decide not to work together, which is okay. It might be a not for now, or maybe a no forever, or we decide that we want to work together, in which case that looks like blank. And then they get to the end, and the prospect says, yeah, this all looks good. I got to tell you something. I got like a really, really important thing next week. It's occupying my mindset. And I promise you, after this next week, we'll revisit it and we'll talk about next steps. But then some like salesperson will bring all their baggage from previous times they've been lied to by a prospect and weaponize it. And they'll say like, well, typically when I hear that, it means they're not interested. And I'm just like, what is wrong with you? Be a human being. Like, someone actually gave you a legitimate story that made sense. Now, guess what? The risk reward was so out of whack. Like, give them the grace that maybe they are actually telling you the truth for a change. And so I think that that's my biggest advice. And we need that now more than ever, is be a human being in the time where everyone else is being replaced by robots.
Right. Agree. Very good advice.
I'm working on it, Nima.
Can you do an episode where like you deep fake us? Because like that like I have had people send me, they go to my LinkedIn, they find my LinkedIn page, and then they do a script, and apparently I start talking. We've all seen that now, and it's scary accurate. You should do an episode where like the Borzu is actually a deep fake robot, and then like halfway through you pop in, and then you're the real Borzu, and we try to guess who's who. Maybe. All right,
Nima, thank you for joining us. You were great as always. I think I genuinely got some things I'm going to implement.
I know this is the best thing about these, actually. We learn so much. And every time we talk to somebody, I use something afterwards, I feel like.
If we're watching, we hope you thought this was a value too, and it wasn't just for us.
Yeah.
And we will catch you next time. We will have links for Nima somewhere, bio, show notes, LinkedIn. Wherever you're watching this, it'll be somewhere different. But you can find him. He's amazing. And we're lucky to have him.
You guys are amazing. This is a blast. Thanks so much for having me.